And that science of how to respond to the world in a way that will bring you closer to God is called Dharma. And our decisions determine our fate. So here, and that will create happiness. Because happiness is a condition of the mind. It's not just a condition of our world. The modern conception of happiness. And we have those samskaras for that type of happiness. We're so convinced that if the world conforms to our desires, we'll be happy. And therefore, our exemplars, our idols, are those people who have power. Because with power, they can move the world according to their desires. But the right conception of happiness is its consciousness. It's not conforming the world to our desires, it's how we think of the world and how we respond to things. I give seminars sometimes, it's called The Skill of Happiness. And I did a little research, and there's some phenomenal points that are made. And there was this study that was done. I often say this, between quadriplegics and lottery winners. And they gave a happiness quotient. And they were shocked when they found out that after 5 years, there was no difference in the quotient of happiness between lottery winners. And initially, obviously, the lottery winners were very happy. Why? Because if the conception of happiness is the world conforming to my desires, and the potentiality for that is the power and control I have over the world, then obviously someone who's a quadriplegic is going to be depressed. And someone who is a lottery winner is going to be, happy. But then you see what happens is that happiness is not conforming the world, it's changing your consciousness. Of course, in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, objective or goal of happiness of conforming the world to our desires. That's not our goal. Our goal is to change our consciousness. And how do you change your consciousness? You get knowledge. And therefore in the Bhagavatam, when this very, very question comes up, because in the second canto of the Bhagavatam, there's an analysis of Dharma. There's analysis of Dharma, and it makes a very, very interesting point about what is Dharma. And I think it's very, very important even to understanding Krishna consciousness. Because the question asked by the sages of Naimisharanya is, what is the absolute and ultimate good? And then it asks, Buri Burini Karmani. There's so many different prescriptions for so many different people. It's like a doctor. It's not just one medicine. Dharma is not just one thing. It's not like a doctor looks at you and he gives you one thing. And he gives everyone the same thing. What's Dharma, what's medicine for a person, depends on their condition. So Dharma is very, very intricate. And therefore spiritual people have to be like doctors in the sense, mentors and guides have to be like doctors because they have to ascertain what is the condition of the person? And therefore they have to give a particular prescription. Of course, maybe there's certain things that are the same to everyone, but there's some subtleties. And therefore, Buri Burini Karmani, they ask the question, there's so many different types of activities. So which one to do? And what is the ultimate and absolute good? And that question is very, very important, especially when it comes to Kali Yuga. Because if there's a goal, you have to have time to pursue the goal, and in Kali Yuga you don't. In Kali Yuga you don't have time to pursue the goal, really, in a really systematic, gradual way. You know, you do, but you don't have time and you're not very qualified. So you really, in Kali Yuga, you really have to focus on the goal. You have to really focus on what's the goal of all this. Where in previous ages, you know, they can put people in these systems that gradually move them forward. It's like that. I'll give you an example. There's something called Jnana Mishra Yoga. And in Jnana Mishra Yoga, Jnana Mishra Bhakti, what Jnana Mishra Bhakti means is that you purify yourself first. And then when you're purified, then your mind can be fixed on Krishna. And there are people who practice this. Satchidananda Swami saw some person in Barsana, eminently qualified. He was just practicing all kinds of purificatory processes, you know, and then, you know, his goal was, I'll be able to fix the mind. But in this age, you're not really qualified to do that. And you don't really have the time to do it. So you have to figure out a way how to actually focus on the goal immediately. And that's the process of kirtan, where you use the sense of hearing for meditation and the sound vibration which consumes the whole body and consciousness even if the mind is not controlled. That's the benefit of kirtan. Even if your mind is not controlled by the power of rag, melody, which touches your heart and creates an attraction for the object of meditation, and tal, rhythm, it does the same thing, then you have a chance. So yes, Puri Burini harmony, there's so many things. And then the answer, very, very significant, Savai Pumso Paro Dharmo, Yato Bhakti or Adoksaji. Savai means certainly. Paro Dharmo, the supreme duty, Yato Bhakti or Adoksaji, is to surrender to God. So our Dharma, ultimately, and it's very, very subtle, is what brings us closer to Krishna. That's the ultimate Dharma. It's not, there's definitely, we follow rules and we follow prescriptions because they help us bring us closer to Krishna. But they are not ultimate. The ultimate rule is what brings you closer to Krishna. And therefore, Rupa Goswami, when he defined, very interesting, when he defined the ultimate principle is remembering Krishna and not forgetting him. And when he defined the duty of the spiritual master is to find the ways and means to engage the disciple in Krishna consciousness. Even in Ramananda Samvad, the discussion between Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya, when Lord Chaitanya, such a beautiful story, when Lord Chaitanya asked, what is the ultimate verse in the Shastra? He wanted to ascertain. And it's one of the greatest treatises of comparative religion, because it gives all these verses, which are spiritual, but they're ultimately rejected. You get eho bhaya, it's external. Even sarva dharman parityaja, mam ekam sharanam vraja, aham tvam sarva pape. Just surrender to me, give up, I will protect you. That's even rejected as external. You know, who can say why that's rejected as external? That's pretty far out, isn't it? Eha bhaya, this is external.
It's like negative, it's not, it's just kind of stopping something and surrendering. It's not like a positive devotion, not positive devotion.
This is like an akashvani, a voice from the sky. No, it's not like, the eighth child of your will be. Yeah.
I suspect it's because of the difference between Saragrahi and Bharavahi. That, we can be Vaishnavas and be too attached to rules and regulations. The Bharavahi Vaishnava,
Yeah.
we're supposed to purge that and become Saragrahi.
The essence.
Yes.
Good, good. See, why is it external? This is all good answers. Why is it external? Because external to what? To the soul. And what's the soul? The soul is love. The soul is consciousness. The soul is meant to serve. So renunciation is external to the soul. It's not the activity of the soul. The activity of the soul is to love Krishna. That's the activity of the soul. So in terms of an ultimate verse, renunciation is external to the soul. It's not thinking about God. It's thinking about giving up the world. Renunciation in itself, Mayavadis are renounced. So give up everything. It's a little bit external. It's not like he just rejected, it's a little bit, Eomaya. And then he finally comes to a verse that says, Gyane Priyasam. You give up all Gyan. Don't think about renunciation. Very clear point. There's three things in the way you can engage with the world. You can indulge in it, you can renounce it, you can dedicate yourself to God within it. And bhakti is that dedication. It's not renunciation. Renunciation, you don't have to be a devotee to be renounced. So, Savai Pumso Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Adoksiji. It's bhakti. The supreme, and everything is secondary to that. In fact, all other dharma can be rejected on that basis. Dharma svinushtita pumsa viviksena katasya. The padiye yatiratim shrama evahi kevalam. Dharma svinushtita viviksena katasya. No padiye yatiratim. If it doesn't give you rati. If it doesn't give you rati, it's useless. The whole goal is to give rati. The whole goal is to put love in your heart. And that's why everything is done. But at the same time, the principle of doing that is the instructions of the Shastra. When you understand, and therefore we do follow rules and regulations. But for an objective or goal. In fact, even in Raga Nuga Bhakti, in spontaneous devotion, it's not that people don't follow rules. Raghunath Das Goswami, his practices were like the lines on a stone. He paid 1,000 obeisances a day. I saw one guy in Radhakund, he would do this. Whenever I go to Radhakund, he'd pay his obeisances. The most beautiful smile on his face. Really, you could see it. 1,000 every day. Haridas Thakur, unless he chanted, finished his 3 lakhs of rounds, he would not take food. But the impetus for it was different. The impetus for it is, I love Krishna so much. What pleases Krishna? And then you go to the Shastra. Then you go, but it's not Yad karosi yadasnasi, whatever you're doing, then you give the results for Krishna. It's patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhakta priyachati. See, in bhakti, the love comes first. Patram pushpam palam to yome, in love you offer me a flower of water. Then the next verse, yad karoshi, whatever you're doing for yourself, then you give the results to Krishna. But we follow, and here, he's instructing. The cow is instructing to the king. Be careful. Be careful how you deal with me. It's not against Shastra. And as we quoted yesterday, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatna Vidimbina Hointakiya Hariya Bhakti. That if you don't follow the proper prescriptions, then you'll cause disturbance. It'll be a disturbance. When you don't follow Shastra, it causes a disturbance. The way to move in this world, to create peace, harmony, happiness, is actually following the Shastra. The prescriptions of how. Because every action has a result. But with Dharma, you get the fruit of devotion, if done properly. Any questions? Yeah.
Sometimes, like you mentioned that preacher should be,
What?
the preacher should speak in the reference of the people. So sometimes people say, like I met one person, he said that unless I understand what is Shastra, I am not going to believe. Means I feel what I am doing, if I am doing good, that is good. May not be based on Shastra. So
He said, if someone may say, if I'm doing good,
then
well, what is it based on? He's saying, if someone is doing good, he'll say, I'm good. But it's not based on Shastra. I'm saying, what is it based on? What makes something good? What makes something good? Is it evolution? That it was, for the survival of the fittest, you develop this altruistic thing? No, there are principles. There are absolute principles. The only difference is they are Shastra, right? But the person didn't get them from Shastra. He got them from Shastra as manifest. In other words, people on themselves, by their previous samskara, by other people, they can do what's right. Right? But they may have not read the Shastra. But the point is, when it starts to get subtle beyond basic principles, then what's right? So they may have a basis, someone may have a basis of morality. Even that question is always asked, can an atheist be moral, or can atheists, I know a person very good and they don't worship God. But I say if they're very good, they do worship God. Because why are they good? Because they accept absolute transcendent principles. They don't call it God, but it's not a reductionist, atheistic view of the world. Real atheists that embrace their philosophy, have to come up with the conclusion that it doesn't matter, that there's no morality and life is meaningless. And you'll see, the real people who are embrace their atheistic, what's it called, I forgot, atheistic rationalist view, they have to embrace the fact that there's no morality, there's no principles. So when someone does that, and they're really a good person, even though they don't have a conception of God, they do have a conception of God. Because they're accepting transcendent moral principles. Right, Dhanurdhara?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. That comes up a lot.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, you can't tell them that, really.
I can.
Like an ethical humanist will say that you can be good with, that's their phrase, good without God. And to tell them that these are transcendent principles.
Well, we can't get in it, but if they analyze it, they have no reason for accepting something as good, according to their core values. They don't have any reason. What's their reason why something is good? They don't have any real logical reason why they accept it. According to the atheistic values they accept, they don't really have a reason for it.
What about just conscience?
What?
Your own conscience is telling you this is the right thing to do, is to help somebody on the street, to feed the homeless. Your own conscience, your human nature tells you to do that.
And why? But what makes it good? Anyway, we can go into
Yeah.
this, but we'll
A
finish.
true atheist doesn't love.
What?